Alright, I guess we'll go ahead and get started here. So, my name is Devin Kearns, and I'll be the one presenting with you guys today. Josh Francis is actually on vacation, but he is the star of the team. He's one with 7 years of experience, and he's quite the contract ninja, as I like to say. If there's any trouble that arises in the contract, he can always seem to figure a way out of it. As for me, I graduated from Davis just last year, and I got started in real estate by investing. I did a lot of tax investments, which you can ask me about if you're interested. And then after that, I really liked real estate, so I decided to hop on board with Josh, and now we are the Francis Kearns team. So just a quick overview of today. So we're going to be talking about the home buying process and discuss 8 steps basically to get you into a house. And we'll be discussing some of the financing options, which is usually the most part that people are interested in the most. And then after that, we'll talk about some really cool ways to search for houses that you might not know about. So to get started, let's give you a quick rundown of the 8 steps to home ownership. So first, you're going to want to decide to buy. Now, you're all here today, so you probably don't need much convincing as to buy a house, but we'll go over some of the reasons why you might want to buy. Next, we'll talk about hiring your agent, which we hope it's us, of course, but just different things that you want to keep in mind when you decide to choose your agent. Next, you want to get your financing in order, and we work with a number of really great mortgage companies that we can refer you to. But if you want to work with your own bank, that's totally fine as well. But there are some challenges involved with that we'll discuss. Next, we take you out and we actually start looking for the houses, and this is usually the most fun part, at least for the first month. After that, this starts becoming a nuisance, but hopefully it won't take that long. After that, we'll make an offer, and then if your offer gets accepted, then we're going to go in and do our due diligence, which is all the inspections, and those will be home inspection, roof inspection, pest inspection, and depending on the age of the house, we'll probably do a sewer lateral inspection. So we'll cover that in greater detail in a bit. So after all the inspections are done and we're satisfied, then we close, and then lastly, you want to protect your investment. So let's just go ahead and dive right in, and then after we get through this all, we'll take any questions from you guys. So the first thing to consider when you're deciding to buy or not is one thing that's pretty cool is the average net worth of renters is just $4,000. When you compare that to the average net worth of homeowners, that's $184,000. So it's a pretty significant difference there. A lot of people say why that is, or ask why that is, and to answer that question, it's because of the annual appreciation for houses. So just a quick rundown here. So at a 3% annual appreciation, a home purchased for $150,000 would grow to $364,000 in just 30 years. So obviously these numbers aren't really adjusted for the Bay Area market, where the average is about $500,000. But you can see just the power of that annual 3% interest rate, we'll say. But it's really, annual appreciation. So, and 3% is pretty much the average. We've seen 4 to 6%, depending on a variety of factors. Like we said, note local appreciation rates will vary greatly, so it could be a little bit higher, a little bit lower, but that's a safe bet. So another thing to consider is that home is where the heart is, and for a lot of people, buying a house represents making it. So it provides stability, and you don't have to worry about paying out rent anymore to anybody, and it gives you a pride of ownership because it's yours. So, kind of what we said before, you're going to be building up a lot of equity, and it's kind of an accidental investment, and there's a lot of tax advantages that come with property ownership, which is interest write-offs for the mortgage. So, there's a lot of cool perks of home ownership, and as you said, it's kind of an accidental investment. And then in a few years down the road, you can use that equity buildup to buy a bigger home, or you could invest in a rental property. As we get asked, what's the advantage over renting versus buying, especially when prices right now are so high? Well, it's not in here, but I'll just say this, that affordability is actually way up. Even though home prices are also way up, what matters the most is actually the interest rate. And interest rates right now are almost at an all-time low. They've been going back up a little bit because the Fed decided to raise rates a little bit, but overall affordability now is actually one of the best times in history to buy, not just like in this decade, but in history to buy. So just something to consider, that for every 1% tick in interest rate, you lose 10% of your buying power. So with interest rates, around 4% right now versus 17, so you can figure out that it's actually a decent time to buy. So another thing to consider is if you took out a 30-year fixed rate mortgage for $150,000 and made monthly mortgage payments of $900, you'd pay $324,000 over the life of the loan. But then you would actually own the house versus you could pay $800 a month in rent over the next 30 years, and then even if they didn't raise rent, you would spend $288,000 and never own anything. Of course, these numbers aren't adjusted for Bay Area prices. You can probably triple everything, or at least double safely. So if you want to look at that again. So, all right. So hopefully now I've convinced you that buying is probably a good idea, just in general, from the appreciation and not having to pay rent, good stuff. So the next thing you want to do is pick your real estate agent, and they perform 7 main roles, which are educate you about the market, analyze your wants and needs, steer you to homes that fit your criteria, coordinate the work with other needed professionals, that's all of the inspectors and all that stuff. We negotiate on your behalf, review paperwork and deadlines, and solve any problems that may arise. Now, after doing this for, many, many clients, I can say that the number 7 is probably our biggest use. So, one thing that you wanted to do, likely, or actually I wouldn't even say likely, depending on the agent, they may have you sign one of these things. So these are buyer representation agreements. It's kind of like a listing agreement, but for a buyer. And it sets mutual expectations in writing between you and your agent, and it commits your agent to getting you in the home that you want while you commit to working exclusively with the agent. We say that looks really nice, but in reality, it serves basically 2 other functions that are even more important, which is protecting your agent's commission, which they usually care about a lot. So if another agent comes and says, hey, this client's actually mine and not yours, then there can be like a big lawsuit about who gets that commission check. So that's the big one on the agent's behalf. And then sometimes clients decide to write an offer with a listing agent, even though the buying agents work with them a lot. So that makes them really upset oftentimes. But those are the 2 other reasons that aren't listed here. We usually don't have anybody sign these things because I don't know why. We just don't. So you don't have to worry about getting into contract with us. If you don't like us, then you can ditch us anytime you want. No hard feelings. So after you've picked out your real estate agent and hopefully you've found somebody you like, I would highlight that fact that somebody you like. You don't want to be working with somebody that you just despise working with and you hate talking to them. You'll probably be working with them a lot, especially seeing a lot of houses together. So if they're just a weird person or you just don't jive personality-wise, then you might consider finding a different agent. So 6 steps to financing a home. So we're going to be talking about the whole financing section now. So first thing you want to do is choose a loan officer or a mortgage specialist. So we work with 2 really good companies. They are Movement Mortgage and RPM. We have really good people working at both of those companies that we can refer you to. So the advantage of these guys over your traditional bank, we'll talk about in just a little bit, but we'll just skip ahead to making the loan application, getting it pre-approved. So putting your loan application together is just a pain. I mean, there's no 2 ways about it, but it's necessary. They're going to want all of your tax statements, income statements, all sorts of fun stuff, but you only have to do it once, hopefully. So once it's done, and then you don't have to worry about it ever again. But after you get all that stuff in, they're going to come back to you and say what it is that you're approved for, like the amount that you're allowed to take out as a loan. And then we submit to the lender an accepted purchase offer contract once we get into contract, obviously. So after we do that, then we get an appraisal and title commitment from them. Well, the title comes from the title company, but the mortgage company is going to order the appraisal, and then we obtain funding at closing. So break that down even further. So the most basic thing is the down payment, interest rate, and terms. Now it consists of or comprises of every single contract you write. There's always going to be a down payment involved, and there's a variety of down payment options we'll talk about, I believe. And then interest rates, that's just what it is. And then there's the two different terms on the loan. So break that down. We got the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. Together, they're referred to as PITI. So principal and interest, that just comes off straight from the loan stuff. Taxes and insurance. Taxes, what we have here in California is it's 1.25% of the purchase price, and that's usually incorporated into the monthly payment, so you're not just smacked at the end of the year with a huge tax bill. And then insurance. Most mortgage companies are going to require you to have insurance for your house, so that's also incorporated into the monthly payment. Now, there's two types of, pre-qualifications. One is just the straight pre-qual, which was fine back in the day, and then that's really no longer the case. Right now we do basically only pre-approvals at the minimum, but there's this even more advanced step, which is called advanced approval, understandably. So all of the mortgage people we work with, they all do advanced approvals, which is even better than the pre-approvals. And basically, it just makes your offer stronger when we're writing an offer. If they see you're just pre-qualified, it doesn't really mean anything. They know that they haven't actually looked at your stuff yet, and that could be problematic for them if you get into contract and then you say, oh, crap, it turns out I can't actually get this loan that we were counting on, so then you fall out of contract. So when a listing agent's looking at offers, they're going to be really hesitant to take anybody that has pre-qual a loan, because pre-qual is just a rough estimate of how much you can borrow, and whereas pre-approval is a much more involved process, and it's actually a formal commitment. And then after that, there's that advanced approval thing that I was talking to you guys about, which is even one step further beyond that, and then it just really gives peace of mind to the listing agents when they're trying to decide between offers. A lot of times that this advanced approval thing can be the difference in that. And that's one advantage of using a mortgage broker as opposed to your traditional bank. Traditional banks are also really slow to close. I think we've had a lot of problems with them in the past. They typically have slightly better interest rates, but a lot of times it's just not worth going that route, even if they can save you a little bit of money, because you can always refi in the future if interest rates are really, really important to you. So, talk about some of the down payment options. So a low payment, monthly payment, if you wanted to have one of those, then just put more money down, obviously. And another way you can go about is to go the low down payment route, which is basically the opposite of that, and that is get a second mortgage on a house. So you get 80% first mortgage, you get a 10% second mortgage, and then you get a 10%, you put down 10% out of your own pocket. And another little tip or trick, I should say, is to build up equity quickly. You can make voluntary payments, so instead of just paying what they say, you can actually make more payments than are required. And the advantage of this is that it saves you a lot of money interest over time. So it's definitely something to consider. I know my girlfriend's parents did this a lot, pretty extensively, to build up equity. And the other thing you can do is just split your monthly payment in half, make half at the beginning and then half at the end. It sounds stupid, but it can actually save you a lot of money over time. And to take the most traditional route, you can get a 30-year fixed mortgage, mortgage with 20% down. And the advantage of this is there's no higher interest rate on the second loan, and banks are more willing to give these out than some other fancier programs. And when we go to write an offer, it just looks better to the listing agent to see that's conventional versus FHA, where there's not a lot of cash down. Though, if you don't have a lot of cash, there's a lot of options for you still. A lot of people don't realize this, that one of the most popular programs in the United States is the FHA program, which is only 3.5% down. So pretty much no matter who you are, you can afford 3.5% down. The only thing beyond that is closing costs, which tend to be 2 to 3% of the total transaction. But I was actually talking to Movement Mortgage the other day, and apparently they're coming out with this 3% grant program. So I'm really curious about that. If any of you guys are interested in that, we'll send out some information on that once I talk to Juliet about that. I think next week. So I think that could be huge for people that are looking for the lower down payment options. So just the suitcase principle. Your lender is going to tell you what you can borrow, but you need to decide what you can afford. So they may say you can borrow, $1 bazillion, but in reality, if you can't afford that, then you don't want to take that loan. And yeah, just make sure you're comfortable with your payment. That's the biggest thing we could say on that. So once we start searching for your house, the first thing you will want to do is kind of narrow down your criteria, like what's important to you, what do you need, what do you want. Is it 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, or you don't care about that? You want just 2-1? What's your price range? All that stuff. So we'll have a big sit down meeting, and we'll figure out what that exactly is that you're looking for. Location is probably the other most important fact in figuring out where you want to live. So when you go through a house, you want to look for a layout, space, sense of value, convenience of location to work, and schools and other features. Whereas us, your agents, we're going to be more cynical. We're just going to be comparing this house to the other ones in terms of size, layout, and value to the other homes in the area. And then we're going to try to be nitpicking all of the little flaws in the house. So, and we'll try to point them out to you as we see them. And if there's anything big, of course, like structurally, then we'll definitely say something about that. So, searching. So, most people think that the best way to search is, pull up Trulia or Zillow. But as it turns out, they're actually really out of date. And we get lots of calls from people asking about houses that have sold months and months ago. So, I would definitely steer clear of that. If you want a good website, realtor.com is pretty accurate from our experience because they go off of our big database, which is the MLS. But yeah, even better than our website is our app. Don't ask me why, but yeah, I'll give you the information on that. This is where you can get it, but it's always up to date. You can contact us via the app, and then it has like mortgage calculators on it and lots of good stuff on there. So I highly recommend using that. Of course, once you're actually working with us and we're actively looking, we're going to send you everything the second it hits the market. So you don't have to go through houses every day looking to see if there's anything new. We will actually send you everything the second it appears on the MLS. So just a heads up there. So once you find a house you like, then we're going to write an offer. And I think, as I mentioned before, there's 3 parts of that, which is price, terms, and contingencies. And then the price, we want to make sure we're offering something that's true to market value. And then there's lots of different terms that we can write in to make the offer more attractive to the seller at the listing agent. So if they want a short close, then we can do that. If they want a longer close, then if that works for you, then we can write that in as well. The other thing is contingencies, and these allow you to opt out of the deal if the home has a big problem, or even a small problem, I guess. So like if we get into contract, they accept our offer, and we find out that there's a big structural problem with the house, and the seller's not willing to repair it or anything like that, then we can say, okay, we're moving along then. And it just protects you, the buyer, in case there's something that you don't like about the house. If it's haunted or something, I don't know. So I think we're going to skip that. But basically we'll recommend, a offer price based on the comps in the area. But ultimately it's up to you to decide what you want to offer on a house. We'll just try to guide you through that. And then going back to property inspections, it's going to expose any structural or hidden issues, if there's termites, anything like that. We'll find out. I think generally we like to say, have like $1,000 to $1,500 for inspections. That's probably on the higher end, but just to prepare yourself in case anything comes up. Structural inspections can be pretty expensive. I think the last one we did was like $425. So they're not cheap. So if anything's exposed in the home inspection report that makes us have to get more inspections, those things can add up pretty quick. And then depending on the age of the home, a lot of times we'll recommend a sewer lateral inspection. But the big three that we always recommend no matter what: home inspection, pest inspection, roof inspection. So just to give you an idea, the nice thing is the roof inspection is typically free with the company that we use. So you only have to pay for the home and pest and possibly sewer lateral unless something else comes up. Yeah. So the homeowner's insurance policy, that's going to protect against any loss or damage, just so you're aware. But if you're, like I said, it's usually the big stuff that comes up during the inspection that matters. We're not going to like nitpick every single thing. I mean, there's always something wrong with a house, but specifically cracks or crumbling in the foundation, huge. If there's cracks inside the house over the windows, water stains in the ceilings, floors, because that could be roof damage, faded or worn shingles, more roof issues, and then, of course, mold, big problem. So, yep, those are the big things that we're looking out for. And then we're going to go back to the seller and ask them to fix it, or ask them for a closing cost credit, or maybe even a price reduction, depending on how big it is. And that's where some more of the negotiation comes into play. A lot of people think that, once you get into contract, we're done with the negotiating part, but we're actually not. Because once all of our reports come back, our inspections, we're looking at them, and then if there's any issues, then we actually have to go back to the seller and say, hey, so there's these issues, so you can fix them, or what do you want to do? And then we typically negotiate back and forth, depending on the issue. So closing. So just to give you an idea, so pre-closing stuff is going to include the appraisal, which is the bank's going to send out somebody to look at the house and see how much it's worth. And we are hoping that the appraisal exceeds the cost or the price that we've written at. If it does not exceed that, then a lot of times you'll have to pay for the difference with cash out of pocket, which really sucks, let me tell you. But generally we don't have a problem with this. Appraisals are starting to catch up with market values, but sometimes this can be an issue. And then we'll do the survey, title search, and title insurance, and that's handled by the title companies. They'll just make sure that the person that's going to be signing actually owns the house, making sure that there's no surprises in the title. Like I don't know, say there's some weird tax assessment. We see that pretty commonly. Like there's this hero program that allows you to attach some upgrades onto the property bill. Anyway, it's this whole long thing. But anyway, that would be uncovered by that title search. And then once we see that, we could ask the seller to pay it off or something. So the other thing we say is to keep yourself mortgage worthy. Don't go out and buy a bunch of furniture before the house closes. I've heard like so many horror stories of this happening, and then they go out and they buy a bunch of furniture or whatever, and then they don't qualify for the loan anymore. And then they end up losing their entire deposit because they removed their contingencies on finance. So it's like, wow, that sucks. You just lost $30,000 because you bought $2,000 worth of furniture. So, yeah, don't do anything to change your credit score. So, whether that be opening new credit cards, I would, just as a rule of thumb, just try to avoid credit cards in general during the close. It's only going to be like 21 days, but just be careful about that. And definitely don't buy a bunch of finance furniture. So after that, we'll do a final walk through the house, making sure everything's looking good to you. Make sure they didn't, graffiti up the house and smack it over with a sledgehammer. And then After that, we'll get the settlement statements, certified funds, evidence of insurance, and transfer clear title. Most of the stuff you don't really have to worry about. It's handled by the title companies and us. Make sure everything's coordinated there. Then you'll get the keys, and then bam, house is yours. So after that, you want to protect your investment. Just keep it clean. Perform routine maintenance on your home systems, depending on their age and style. Just keep an eye on it. Watch for signs of leaks, damage, and wear. Fixing the small problems early can save you big money later down the road. So if you have a leaky roof, you want to get on that right away. You don't want to let that cause water damage, and then next thing you know, you have to repair way more than just the roof. So one thing you can also do is you can also get inspections anytime you want. Like you can get a pest inspection every couple of years to just make sure that there's no termites going on or anything like that. And it's not too much money. That's only a couple $100, and that's some peace of mind right there. And also, just remember to keep a file of receipts for your repairs, because if you ever decide to sell your house, that's going to be huge. So next steps. All right. So let's say you're sitting here. You're like, okay, I want to buy. Like, what is the next step we want to do? Well, you'll probably want to start the pre-approval process, even if it's just very preliminary. That's getting in contact with our mortgage people. We can set you up anytime you want. Have a big meeting, and then just start submitting all that paperwork. And then while that's going on, you can probably download our app. You can check out some houses, see what's available in your area or where you want to live. That'll kind of give you an idea of pricing, of how much it costs to live in each area. So if you're looking at it, you say you think you can afford around $500,000, and you ask yourself, okay, do I want to live in Concord? Is that in my price range, or am I thinking more Pittsburgh or Antioch? You probably won't be able to do Danville or Orinda. They're like $1 million a piece plus. So after that, you'll probably want to set up a meeting with us, and then, well, you could actually probably do that first, but we can just answer any questions that you have that are specific to your situation. A lot of people, everyone's situation is different, so we can answer any additional questions that you have, and then we can also help set up that meeting with the mortgage brokers too. So yeah, we'd be happy to answer any questions at this point. So just let us know. And here's our info real quick. If you want to write that down. So this is Josh's number, 925-818-1515, and then I handle all the emails. So just email me, devinkearns@kw.com. And then if you head over to our office, which is where you are right now, just ask for Devin Kearns or Josh Francis. Usually I'm lurking somewhere, so you can come say hi and sit down real quick. We can chat. And just in case you don't have our address, it's 760 Camino Ramon, number 200. All right, thank you so much for listening, guys. And like I said, let us know if you have any questions.